the motion.
You're right, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Honorable Gaza Jonathan Befi, and I rise to move a motion on the need. I represent the people of Karu, Kefi, Kokona Federal Constituency of Nasarawa State, and I rise to move a motion on the need to determine why food products prohibited from exportation are being exported and also do not meet international standards. The House notes that as part of measures to diversify our oil-dependent economy by tilting towards the export of agricultural products, the federal government launched the yam exportation program with a projection of earning $10 billion in foreign exchange in the course of the next 4 years. Aware that the schedule of the Export Prohibition Act Cap 22, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, lists beans, cassava tuber, maize, rice, yam tuber, and their product derivatives as goods absolutely prohibited from exportation from Nigeria. Also aware that a bill for an act to repeal the provisions of the Export Prohibition Act had recently passed second reading in the House. Concerned that the federal government has, in the bid to increase agricultural products exportation, disregarded a subsisting law and carried on the exportation of some of the above goods expressly prohibited from exportation. Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, the House observes the recent report that 72 tons of yam tubers that were exported sometime in June 2017 were rejected by the United States of America as they were found to have arrived rotten, thereby causing the nation great embarrassment, as it is now obvious that produce approved for export by the government do not meet world standard for exportation. Also concerned that the above development raises concern about the capacity of ministries, departments, and agencies charged with the responsibilities of conducting necessary checks on quality of goods billed for export to diligently carry out their assignment, and this also calls to question the safety of food approved for local consumption by the ministries, departments, and agencies. Right, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, the House therefore resolves to mandate the Committees on Agricultural Production and Services and Custom Exercise to interface with the Minister of Agric on why the law prohibiting the exportation of yam tubers was flagrantly disregarded, thereby causing immense embarrassment to the country. Secondly, the Comptroller General of Customs, the Executive Director of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, the Director General of the Standards Organization of Nigeria, and Head of the Nigerian Quarantine Service, and heads of all other relevant agencies to explain why, one, the granted export license for food prohibited for exportation, and secondly, food products they are approved for exportation did not meet the prescribed quality and standards of the countries they exported to, and to report back to the House in 8 weeks for further legislative action. Right, Honorable Speaker, I so move.
A motion moved by Honorable Gaza Befi. I so second.
That I move this motion. Why? Because at a point in time when this nation has decided to diversify from oil being our sole source of foreign exchange, we are making mistakes. There is a saying that goes, measure 9 times and cut once. And another saying that goes, you only have one chance to make a first impression. Right, Honorable Speaker, in the month of June, the Minister of Agriculture came on all national television stations and on the pages of newspapers and raised the hopes of Nigerians that finally one of our most precious goods, one of the most precious resources which we have, which is agriculture, is finally reaching its crescendo. And this came about by the exportation of 72 tons of yam. Now, Honorable Speaker and Honorable colleagues, this is supposed to be a pilot scheme that should have all hands on deck, a pilot scheme whereby all the T's should be crossed and all the I's should be dotted. But unfortunately, Right Honorable Speaker, opposite was the case. We were greeted with our goods, which were so celebrated. And as a matter of fact, His Excellency, the Vice President, actually attended the flag off of this great and historic event that would have brought Nigeria and put us in our pride of place with regards to exports. Because indeed, this country is rich in resources, agri being one of the biggest in which we are richest in. But just as I said, it is quite unfortunate that the excitement of yam adventure came as the country struggled to shroud the European Union ban on Nigerian beans, which is yet to be lifted. But just recently, reports had it that 67 processed and semi-processed products of Nigerian origin exported to also the EU were rejected in the year 2015 and 2016. Right Honorable Speaker, why I'm so sad about this is because it has left a very, very sour taste in the international community. We have generations yet behind us that need to be able to undertake such processes with regards to export. And note, that is the strength of any country, the capacity to export. And one of our greatest resources being agriculture, with this present thing that has happened, will now bring about putting bars and extra restrictions, thereby making our revenue to have a significant dip. Note furthermore, and sadly, we are just coming out of recession. Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, this is not a time when we need such things to happen. And that is why I have equally said the minister should be called upon to give us a detailed explanation. Furthermore, the laws of the Federal Republic have banned in the first place exportation of such things. If we have a country where the executive do not obey the laws of the land, then what kind of country are we running, Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable colleagues? There is a need for a detailed explanation where we have a law that is existing. We have just started embarking on the process of repealing it, but the executive has gone way ahead. What does that portend for the honorable citizen? Is it right to break the law? So there is need that we take adequate steps in bringing about law and order, and secondly, addressing the embarrassment that has befallen us as a nation. Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable colleagues, I kindly crave your indulgence that we give this motion the much needed attention it requires. Thank you very much.
Honorable Munir.
I rise to support this motion because it has a lot of implications if we don't address it. First, we have to even look at, in our own situation at this time, we said yam. Yam in Nigeria is one of the most biggest commodities that we produce in this country. I think we produce more than 50 million metric tons of maize per annum. Yeah. And it helps us to stabilize our national food security. And one of the issues is it a right policy for us to even export raw yam? I think there are questions to be answered by many professionals. And one of the issues or agencies that I want this committee to invite is the quarantine service, and then other committees like NAFDAC, so that we look at the policy and see whether it is going to help our country. As he said, there are allegations which even I heard the Minister of Agriculture was saying that they are going to investigate the issue of this yam that was taken to USA, and at the end of the day, that yam was found to be rotten. So instead of the image of the country to be promoted, now we are negated. So the executives and the private sector are the ones that really encourage this export. So it is important that the legislature should look at this issue seriously and address it with professionals. And we should be looking inward to make sure that we add value to what we produce in this country.
My colleagues, I'm from Kwara, the state of Harmony. I want to thank my colleague and friend for this wonderful motion. I think the concern here is that it is very disturbing when the executive, which is supposed to be the implementer of the legislation and laws that we pass on the floor of this house, or the country that we're exporting to, and they must start their production activity from inception to finishing to be in tandem with this standard operational protocol. And that is the only time our products will be acceptable to these countries. And that is the only time we won't have this kind of national embarrassment. What my colleague has said is, rather than have what we can call a milestone that should make us proud and where we can step on and say, now we are exporting and we are moving on from there and we are taking it from rice, from yam to rice and other products. We now have a situation where people are actually taking a second look and saying, I mean, can we imagine, yams that arrive the destination rotten? I mean, nobody will take us seriously. Who must be held responsible to come and explain why, particularly, we found ourselves in this embarrassing situation, with a view to make sure that we don't find ourselves in this kind of predicament in the future, so that we can really move our agri to the desirable global level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate the mover of this motion. Beside the infraction here, because we have a full-fledged legal department in the Ministry of Agri and Rural Development, then we have the Attorney General of the Federation. Why all this infraction took place? Because this was well publicized, was in the media for so long, how much we are going to earn from the exporting yams, which I thought, even from day one, that it was even the wrong step to take. If we are producing yam, what I thought we should have been doing, so look for what to do with it. Because there are private people that export yam to Europe and to America. And it's business. Because I was discussing with a guy this morning before coming in here, how he ate Okodo in Maryland. These are private people doing this business. The yam gets to the US, gets to Europe in good condition. Now government has come in. This just confirms what I've always said. What I've always said here. That government does not have any business in business. The propaganda, the hype was unnecessary, but look at where we are now. How were we ever going to make $10 billion from this? Thank you.
Honorable EJ.
My Speaker, sir, let me appreciate and thank the mover of this motion. But I don't want to stand before this honorable house to castigate or to mutilate or to discredit the Minister of Agriculture on the very simple ground, Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues. The whole country saw that we were in recession. Nigeria were crying. How do we get out of this menace? And somebody came about. Okay, Yam. Can we export yam out of this country? And they estimated that we'll be making 10 billion. And Nigeria were jubilating. I saw a lot of people talking about it. Oh, this is a new age of development that we should applaud. Even myself, Mr. Speaker, I was happy to see that for once, Nigeria to export yam, even though I have been receiving yam over the years, having lived in America, yam coming from Nigeria by individual businessmen and women. Even though government have no business with business. But it came to a point that we were in recession. Everybody were wearing a very serious hat. How do we get out of recession? Because all of us who saw it then, who did not speak about it, who didn't know that it's against the law in exporting, tubers of yams, I don't think they should be crucified. Rather, we should look for the way forward. In every problem, Mr. Speaker, there's a solution. And the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, they're also doing everything humanly possible to do all that can make Nigeria a better place. I think, Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues, that the Honorable Minister, I am not holding brief for him, in his own intention is to bring dividends of democracy to the yearning of the people. Unfortunately, we have found ourselves in this quagmire. What do we do now? Is to come back to a drawing board so that we don't make the same mistake again of this national disaster. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you and also want to thank the mover of this motion for giving me the opportunity to understand this motion. It's just too unfortunate that we've lost it, but thank you for bringing it to the attention of all Nigerians.
Well, exporting products to outside country by Nigeria is not the first time. In the 60s, Nigeria had been exporting a lot of agricultural products such as cocoa, groundnut, and all the rest of them, and earning revenue from that. I'm really surprised by the exercise or by the activities of our personnel involved, as mentioned in the motion. To me, I would consider it is just an act of sabotage, because exporting agricultural products is not something new. We have been doing it and we have been earning a lot of revenue from that. So to this effect, Mr. Speaker, I would like to even amend the prayer of the mover of this motion. Instead of sending the committee to have an interface with these people concerned or relevant agencies concerned, I would want to suggest that let them come to the floor of the House and defend their own action. First, for violating the existing law. Secondly, for doing the wrong thing and giving a wrong image of Nigeria outside this country. More especially now that we are trying to diversify our economy and agriculture as our mainstay of revenue earning. So we shouldn't take this simple mistake as a simple mistake, but we should hold them here, let them come and explain to us why in the face of an existing law, go ahead and do what they have done. So I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Specifically for drawing our attention to the fact that we have loads of obsolete laws in our law books. I say so because my colleague has just said that he was not aware, and I'm sure many people are not aware, that exportation of yam is prohibited. Probably the authors of that law had reasons some 20-30 years ago for prohibiting the exportation of yam. But I'm not sure that that is still a valid reason to condemn the entire action of this minister. Honorable Speaker, I think it should actually be a wake-up call for us lawmakers to realize that we have to review the laws proactively to see where laws are obsolete, needs amendment, and should be amended in such a way that we will continue to support government policies, particularly in the area of diversification, because we have all clamored for this. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to salute the courage of this government and in particular the Minister of Agriculture, in daring to venture into exportation or the promotion of exportation of agri products. For Christ's sake, we've relied on oil for too long. We seem to have been distracted completely as a nation, to the extent that whereas we are so endowed naturally, we have left developing very critical sector of the economy because we are relying and we keep looking up to oil. But now we have a government that has the courage to say we are moving on from a monoproduct economy to agriculture, to solid mineral, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, it is not a crime to make inertial mistakes. It is not a crime for the government to have ventured into exportation of these products. If there is an aspect of law that prohibits it, it is our responsibility to change it.
Motion well. We should not deceive ourselves, Mr. Speaker. First of all, we have to remember that we are lawmakers. And this team mentioned that there is Prohibition Act on those such items. And people surprising me now, they are talking that they exported yam to America and they embarrassed them. How many people went outside and embarrassed Nigeria? The most embarrassment we have to observe is we leave our people in hunger. That is the most embarrassment we have to talk about. And if you said you are exporting food from the nation, somebody with the population of nearly 2 million people are living in hunger in our various constituencies, and we know some they get only 1 meal or 2 meals a day, and we are talking to export or to get dollar. If you get the dollar, what are you going to do with it? Are you not going to use it to do welfare to the citizens of the country? So when we come, we have to remember, as a representative of the people, we have to talk what is the reality. Our people are living in hunger. About 3 weeks back, I sent my boy to go and buy yam for me. He brought me 30 pieces of yam, as each one 1,300 naira. How can a poor man can get opportunity to eat yam if you continue exporting it? If you said that is by the economic is good, but what you will observe is, did you eradicate hunger from your people before you start exporting food from your country? Now you put a ban on importing rice and others. So you have millions of people hanging around, and now you say you will not import food. Now you will export your own, and you stop importing. So you want our people to die. That is the reality. You want our people to die. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to remember that when you want to import it, except you have excess. When we went to the constituencies, we had no hunger complaint from our people. Then we can ask government to export the food outside. But our people are complaining here, Mr. Speaker, how can we export food while we put ban on some import? So seriously, Mr. Speaker, since there is prohibition, there is act that so we stop exportation for now, as they stop import. So we stop importation for this type of food until our people satisfied.
Let us not gloss over the issues that we are considering at this point. Why? Because this is not the first time that we are getting into this kind of situation. Nigeria had attempted to export some legumes, beans in particular, and they never met standards. There are other food items that we had attempted to export as well, and they never met international standards. It calls for concern that even the food that we consume here, what are the standards? Do they meet the standards as required? We had considered on the floor of this house the issues of sunset yellow in Fanta that we drink here and benzoic acid in Sprite as having not met international standards when attempts were made to export them to the UK. These are issues and matters that will call for very serious consideration and concern. Let us not forget, we had also prided ourselves as having exported some of these agricultural products in the past. Yes, but they do not fall into the same categories. The composition, characteristics, behavior, and challenges of cereals are quite different from that which affects roots and tubers. And what we are considering at this point falls under the category of roots and tubers. The things that would make them not be appreciated are either they must have had mechanical injury at the point of harvest, or we are unable to control the aspects of respiration in the process.
Those in favor of the motion as amended say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. 10th order of the day, honorable colleagues, a motion on need to check the...
On this very important bill,